Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Dr. Grant Show. Today we'll be talking about 3 instincts that you should never, ever ignore. This is important because from what I've been seeing in my wellness practice over the course of time, one of the reasons why people often binge eat, overeat, emotionally eat, struggle with weight loss is because very often they're ignoring one part of themselves. They're ignoring something that's telling them that they are either A, in the wrong job, or the relationship needs a slight tweak or modification, and a failure to ignore these signs that your body is giving you, that your mind is giving you, often leads to ill health, or at least not maximized and optimal health, meaning that you're not living in your full potential. It's impossible to put a shiny new car, a new idea, a new way of living in your mental garage and space if it's too cluttered with all of the old stuff. And how can you listen to and hear the true calling of what's supposed to be in your mental garage, so to speak, if it's too plucked full with the things that you don't find joy in your life? I see a cowlick there. So I want to talk about 3 instincts that you should never, ever ignore. Instinct number 1 is feeling that there's something going on with your health. Instinct number 2 is feeling there's something that needs to change with your job or your career. Instinct number 3 is feeling that something needs to change in your relationship. Let's get into it, shall we? Number 1, feeling there's something going on with your health. You don't have to have a concrete idea of what it is, but if you've been waking up in the mornings or periodically throughout the day, you are having this feeling. You can't put your finger on it, but you have a feeling somewhere either in a specific part of your body, then it's time to quiet down, slow down your life, and begin to get a better bead on where is this feeling coming from. During my client sessions, very often we conduct something called EFT tapping sound baths and EFT tapping sound bath hypnosis. And this actually helps clients get a better understanding of where is this feeling coming from. Remember, our bodies speak in waves of emotion, sensations. Our mind speaks in words. So often we are unable to hear what our body is trying to tell us with the subtle tweaks, the subtle aches, the subtle pains, that pulling sensation, because we haven't stopped to take time to listen. The 3rd instinct you should never ignore is when you feel like there's something going on in your career. Now, in my digital wellness practice, I work with people that struggle with food addiction, emotional eating, weight loss, and I'm here to tell you something. If you think that the reason why you can't lose weight has to do with you not counting the right enough calories or not working out enough, that's not it. Let me say that again. If you think that the reason why you can't shake those 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 50 pounds is because you're not eating the right thing, or you're not working out hard enough, you're not starving yourself enough, I am here to tell you that's not it. After being the first research scientist to actually create a study, the first of its kind that was online, that worked with food addicts and people that struggle with emotional eating, that were looking to lose weight nationwide. And in 4 weeks, these people succeeded in losing, according to their reports, 20 pounds. I'm here to tell you it has nothing, very little to do with what you're eating. Why? Because of that mental clutter in the garage, like I mentioned earlier. How often have you said you were going to work out. You swore you're going to get up and work out. And then something happens in your life. And the next thing you know, you're not making it to the gym. You're not even going to have to actually have a sit up and schedule a sit up or a push up on the floor of your house. You see, you don't even have to make your workouts complicated in order for them to be effective, but you do need to decide upon what can you do and execute sustainably and consistently. Sustainability, meaning if you have certain things in your life that take time and maybe unanticipated time, certain variables in time, then maybe it will be difficult to work out for 4 hours a day. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying that it's definitely going to be a wee bit more of a challenge compared to if a person has very little responsibilities in their lives that take a significant amount of time. So it has to be sustainable, but the most important thing here is if you're working in a job that when you really take a step back, you realize that you're not living your life. You are living someone else's life. You're living the life that someone else wanted for you, but you have yet to take a step back and realize, what do you want for yourself? That is the big $10 million question. The reason why this is so important to those of you that are looking to lose weight is because it's like having a hole in your bucket, especially for your career. Think about how much time you spend at your job day after day after day. And if you're spending time at a job that is not an idealized match for you, then that hole in your bucket gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And any intention that you put in it, any very well-intended diet plan, any well-intended workout plan, it's going to fall flat because your proverbial mental bucket can't hold water. Okay? So for this reason, if your instinct is telling you that this job is not the right job for you, here's what you need to do. Number one, ask yourself, what parts of my job do I like? What parts of my job do I not like? Based on my personality, are there things in my job that I could be doing instead? Is there something going on in another department that maybe I can begin to work towards and find a way in? Make nice with that department and see if you can begin to demonstrate that you're able to perform those tasks and those duties instead. I had a client once that this person thought that the problem was their job. And I'm sharing the story with you so that you could see yourself in this. The client thought that the problem was their job. And it turns out for him, after we spent some time together, the problem wasn't the job at all. The problem was just parts and elements of the job that he did not like and care for. So once we worked together to reduce the fear that he had of certain parts of his job that he had to perform, he found there were so many other elements of his job that he liked that he no longer had problems every single morning. Excuse me. He found that he didn't have problems going to his job, and it became less of a hole in his bucket every single morning because we plugged the hole. Sometimes it's misdirection. You may think that the problem is over there, when in reality, the problem is over here. And only having someone that's working with you can help you tell the difference. Finally, the third instinct you should never ignore is your relationship. It doesn't mean you go out and tell the person that you're in a relationship with that it's over. Not yet. But find out what is the challenge that you're dealing with. Are you truly happy in your relationship? Here's how you find out the answer to that. If you won the lottery tomorrow, if a giant sum of cash was dumped in your bank account tomorrow, and you no longer had to concern yourself with your financial needs, you didn't have to worry about being lonely ever again, if you didn't have to worry about any of those variables, so far as your instinct about your relationship that you should not ignore. Hey, Sophie, welcome to the show. We are covering the third thing out of 3 instincts you should never ignore. We're covering relationships, and the instinct that something needs to shift in your relationship. And the reason why we're covering this is because of the fact that often these things put holes in your bucket, your proverbial bucket, and it prevents you from really stepping up in other areas of your life, and it prevents a lot of people that I help with my digital wellness practice from losing weight. So in regard to relationships, the key question that you should ask yourself, if you're leaning in the direction of beginning to wonder if this relationship needs to be tweaked, is if you had no fear of being alone, if you had no concerns about comfort or security in terms of the roof over your head or money being provided for, if none of these were a variable, would you still stay with the person you are with? Let me say that again for those of you that are wondering what I said or you're still processing. In terms of your relationship, whether or not this is something that needs to be examined, when we talk about 3 instincts you should never ignore, and the final one is your relationship. The first one is your health, the second one is your career, the third one is your relationship. If you ask yourself the question, if loneliness wasn't a factor, if money wasn't a factor, if your safety and security wasn't a factor, I mean, they're all taken care of, okay? Would you still be with the person that you're with? That is the $10 million question. Now, take time to think about it for a quick sec. If it turns out that your answer is yes, then great. Then that means that from an instinct perspective, if you're finding things that are bothersome about your relationship, it just means that you need to have a tweak, a pivot. Maybe some boundaries have been crossed. Maybe you shared with your person you're in a relationship with, your partner, your significant other, that this is important to me. And maybe that started off really good in the very beginning. But now time has passed. They've gotten used to you, perhaps, and you've gotten used to them. And slowly, things began to go in a different direction. Maybe your boundary, for example, like one of my clients, was making sure that she always felt love. And for her, love meant that if she expressed, because she rarely expressed her needs anyway, but if she said that she wanted to do something, then that meant that it was pretty important. We need to actually do it. So it's things like that, that if you ask for something, especially if you're not the type of person that asks for anything, then that means to the person, they should know this, that, oh, this is pretty important to you. So let's work hard to get it done. Let's work together to set up a timeline, even if it's not feasible to do it right now. So if you're in a relationship and after you answer those questions that I just asked earlier and you're finding, feel free, this is an interactive chat, so feel free to go ahead and type your question in the chat or even drop a heart or a wave. But if you're finding that the answer is yes, it's just a couple of things that are kind of nagging along, then okay, then identify what is it you need. What makes you feel loved? Everyone's got a different love language. Some people feel loved when they receive gifts. Some people feel loved when there's communication. Some people feel loved when they're touched. I believe the book is about love languages, and it's a really good book, but I'm giving you the quick summary version. Find out what your love language is. It may not be that the person that you're in a relationship with doesn't love you. It just means that you're not speaking the same language. So you don't feel as appreciated. There's no gas being put in your tank if your love language is acts of service and that person's love language is touch. It can almost feel bothersome because they're trying to touch you all the time and you want acts of service. You want them to do something for you. In those instances, communication is key so that you can know what it is that you need. And you can also know what they need as well, because this is a partnership, not a single dictatorship. Now, for those of you where your instincts have led you to say, it's my relationship, and you've asked yourself the questions that I mentioned earlier, and the answer is, when you really think about it, that you would not be in a relationship with this person, then there is a triage that needs to be set up in your heart and your soul to find out what happened. Can this relationship, if it's on life support, be saved and salvaged? Maybe your first initial reaction might be no, but is that the hurt talking? Or is that really no? Don't make a hasty decision and a hasty move without discussing something with the person that you're involved in a relationship with. Maybe they never even knew that this was something that you needed, and you owe it to yourself and you owe it to that person to let them know, hey, in the past, I know you thought that I was okay with this, but I'm really not. I've come to a point where I'm no longer okay with insert this behavior here, insert the way that they speak here, insert whatever it is that doesn't work for you in the past. Because the first response will be, because we've allowed this. We've allowed this in our lives. Many people that I talk to in my digital wellness practice, they're like, well, they know that I don't like that. Do they really? Or they'll say, well, you tolerated it in the past. Okay. I may have tolerated it in the past, but I've had some time to think and I'm no longer going to tolerate it. You give the person an opportunity to receive you when you take this approach. You give the person the opportunity and yourself the opportunity and the chance for the relationship to come out of triage, to get the relationship off of life support, if it's possible to do so. And if it's not, then that just simply means that you have, and both of you have evolved into people that may desire different things. And then a decision has to be made. Are you both important enough to each other, in each other's lives, to make it worth your while, for both of you to hammer out a solution that works for both of you, where one person doesn't feel like they're backing themselves into a corner in order to have that person. Now, I specialize in weight loss, emotional eating, and food addiction. And a lot of people originally think that when we're working together, that I will start pummeling them with questions about what they're eating and how often they're working out. But in my mentorship program, that's not the case. The first phase of my mentorship program really is this: talking about what you can't ignore anymore in your career, what you can't ignore, what your instincts are telling you you can't ignore anymore with your health, what your instincts are telling you that you can't ignore anymore in your relationships, whether you're in one or whether you're not in one. Even if you're not in one and you want one, well, what do you want? And getting real specific about that. So that way you don't have a repeat pattern of having a relationship that you eventually want to get out of. And this plugs the hole in people's buckets. And this gives them the mental stamina and the fortitude to actually direct energy towards the next phase, which would be cleanup of the things that are blocking them from achieving their health goals, and the energy to go into phase 3, which is the actual workout. Hey, welcome. WLS Alternative. Thank you for joining the program. So These are the 3 instincts you should never ignore. And the 3 instincts, once again, are your health, your career, that something needs to be tweaked, and finally, your relationships. Because these 3 things can plug and poke a proverbial hole in your bucket. And when that proverbial bucket has too many holes from these important things in your life, what winds up happening is you don't have the energy to carry out and move forward and move through these challenges so that you can succeed in your health goals. But there's a way to do it that works, and then there's a way to do it that actually causes more destruction in its wake, both for you and the people that are involved in your life. And that's where having the right tools comes in with our EFT tapping sound baths, EFT tapping hypnosis, personal training, yoga. All these things fit together. But the first phase is that psychology work. And then the next phase is the uprooting of any kind of beliefs that have been holding you back and reprogramming your mind. And then the third phase is the actual food and workout. And this way, you stop emotional eating and you lose weight so much easier without counting calories, without all these grueling workouts. And you create something that you can go back to, and it's easy and it's simple. If this sounds like something that is definitely right for you, feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions. And it's just a question that you'd like to address privately, feel free to also send me a direct message. The business phone number is 312-601-8510. Thank you for joining the Dr. Grant Show. Up to you. Bye.